Hello, welcome to Topper Machine. I'm Josh Topper, and if you caught the last video, we made some big shafts. Turned them on the Lion lathe, and today we're over at the Cincinnati horizontal mill where we're going to mill the Keyways. And I prefer to do the Keyways in the horizontal just because the chips fall right out of the cut, and we have flood oil coolant on the horizontal mill. So this is a great machine for doing this kind of work. Very rigid, holds tolerance very well. So let's get set up and let's get cutting. So in order to do this, I'm going to get set up here, but we're going to slide the shaft into this groove on this table here, and we're just going to rest it in the T-slot groove. And those are usually very spot on, a good indicating and referencing source. And because this table has an open access out this end, this will work out great. The other end has a mount, so you can't slide them that way. So we're going to come in from this way. But I just want to get all of my clamping set up in place and ready before I slide that shaft up, because we're going to do the, it's a 3/4 inch keyway on the long shaft first on the long end, and we're going to have quite a bit of weight hanging over the table, so I want to be ready to throw a clamp on it so it doesn't run away on me. All right, so we'll get this indicated in. Setup's pretty straightforward. We're going to change out my cutter here for a drill chuck to use the edge finder, and then we'll put an end mill in and get going. So what we got here is a ER40 collet chuck. So it uses these ER40 collets. These go up to, I believe, 1 1/8 inches. And these have been great here in the shop. I got multiple holders for them. Absolutely love these things. This is a 40 taper holder, a 50 taper spindle, so I have the 40 to 50 adapter in here. And I do have quite a bit of 40 taper tooling that I do use on this, so it works out great. Now, before I get this set up and figure out where my center is on the shaft, we're going to sweep this with an indicator and just see how perfect this is laying in this table slot. All right, first I'm going to sweep it across the top here. We'll see. That looks beautiful. Yeah, that'll work perfect. Next I'll set up on the side here and we'll indicate that way, make sure we're good there. You know, a couple thou, I think we can live with that. All right, so we were absolutely perfect running across the level of the table, which is great. Absolutely what we need. But a little bit of run out for the depth of cut, but that's not going to affect us hardly at all. I think we'll be just fine living with that. And next we'll take our edge finder and we'll come up on top of the shaft here, find center of the shaft, and we'll get our end mill in there and start cutting. Bring it up 1.468, which is half of 2.436, and which is 1.2 218, I think I measured or calculated, plus 250 for half of the edge finder. Yeah, it looks pretty good to center. We'll double check everything before we get started, but that's how you find center. All right, I'm just gonna run this over and kind of verify the position by eye, but I think we're in pretty good shape here. Okay, you probably saw that was off to the center drill mark, and it was because I went for 2.436 and not 2.936, and that's why you always double check your numbers. So what I needed to be was 1.468 plus 0.25, 1.718, and that should get me there, so I'll just crank that last little bit up and we'll check it again. That's a lot better. All right, we'll get the edge finder out of here. We'll get switched over to our end mill. And we're using a 5/8 inch 4-flute end mill to cut this. And it's a 3/4 wide keyway, so we'll open it up and then creep up onto the finished dimension. All right, so I'm gonna run 385 RPM. I think I'm gonna start feeding at 6 1/8 inches a minute. I think that'll be a pretty good speed. This is a used end mill, but it's still in great shape. So we're gonna come in, we're gonna touch off on the face here, and then we'll touch off on the face here, and then we'll feed in. I think we're gonna take 200 thousandths depth of cut the first cut, and then well, we'll see how that goes. Feed rate is a little bit on the aggressive side, but overall that looks nice. So we'll go ahead and we'll take our next cut, but I'll back off the feed rate just a little bit. Actually, no, I won't. I'm gonna leave it just the way it is, and we'll get it on the final pass to clean up. So we had already taken 200 thousandths. Now we're going to take it into 400. And then we'll have one more pass after this before we start widening out the keyway. Okay, so for a 3/4 inch depth keyway, or width, in 4 15/16 shaft, you're looking at about a 423 thousandths from touch off to bottom of the keyway. This customer asked for plus 15 minus 0. So plus 15 thousandths. We're actually gonna go to 430 depth, 429, 430. So we're not even close to that 15 max, but we're close to it. And I'm gonna slow down my feed rate here to give myself a better surface finish in the bottom of that keyway. So let's make the final cut here, and then we'll start widening out the keyway. That's a lot smoother in there. I'm gonna knock this burr off right here and just measure our depth. I know I'm gonna be off though, because depth of the keyway is when you measure it from the outer edge. We still have to widen this out, but that'll tell me if we're close or not. Yeah, looks like we're right where we need to be. I'm just gonna grab a quick width measurement, see where we are. So we are 10 thou over. So I'm gonna take my next passes, I'm gonna go 50 on either side, and then we'll measure again, and then finish it off. Okay, so due to the direction of the rotation of the end mill here, we're gonna take it off the bottom on the first pass, and then coming back, we'll take it off the top at 50 thou either direction, because we're cutting it at 5/8 and we need a 3/4 wide keyway. So we'll just widen it out both directions, and take a measurement and then take another pass to clean it up. So here we go. Alright, I'm just going to come in with the caliper and just see roughly where we are. I would assume we are a ways away yet. And by the caliper, we're 723. So I'm going to bump it up to 6, take another 10 off each side, and that should get us within about 8 thousandths, or maybe less. We'll see how it goes. But we'll do another 10 on each side, and then measure it again. Alright, just going to clean this out a little bit, and we'll measure it again with the caliper, and then I'll grab the gauge blocks and we'll verify what we find with the caliper. Looks like 744. I'll go grab the gauge blocks and we'll see if that's accurate. All right, I've got the 600 and the 144. We'll see if that, look at that, fits very snugly, but beautiful. So we've got, we're gonna go for 1 thou under, so 749. So we've just got a little bit each side to take, be able to do that one more pass. All right, let's just see how we did. I got the gauge blocks here, and here is the 750 gauge block. Oh, I can't get that started. And here is 600 plus 149. Beautiful. That actually goes all the way in. Exactly what we want. So that's a perfect fit. Yeah. I'll have to clean some crap out of there, but yeah, we're good. We're good all the way down. So we wanted it at 749, and that's luckily what we got using measuring with gauge blocks. Best way to measure this internal stuff, you know, keyways and things like that. Getting in there, it's absolutely best. So if you got a set of gauge blocks, you'll love them. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and get this bad boy out of here, get it cleaned up, deburred, and get the other two, this keyway done, and then we'll set up, and I'll do the 7/8 keyway that goes in the center here where the sprocket mounts. So that's a little different setup, but similar concept. We go in smaller and we creep up on it, but because it's encased, we're gonna bring the end mill in and auger out the center. You know, we use a center cutting end mill and we plow in and then back and forth that way. So let me get this out of here, get the other two done, and then we'll move on to that part. All right, there's our third and final keyway. We'll get the setup changed, change out our end mill, and mill the keyway over here. Okay, so we're set up again, and I touched off, I got my 0. And what we're doing is we're cutting the keyway at the edge of the curve on the end mill at this relief we put on the shaft last week when we turned them, or whenever that video was. So we're gonna cut to that on each end, and we're going in 495 thousandths. This one they wanted a lot closer tolerance, plus 5 minus 0 for the depth. So we're gonna go in, this is a 3/4 end mill, we're doing a 7/8 key, so we're going in again, that, 500 thousandths roughly depth, and then we'll widen it out. So we'll widen it out to keep it about 874 on the width. All right, so I just touched again, and it's really hard for me to see because it's on the back side, but I need to go over a little further. It looks like about there, so I'll 0 my readout, get the oil going. And we're gonna plunge in 200 thou to start with. And I'm gonna feed this with the power feed at 1¼ a minute. There's 200 thou. Now I'm upping my feed rate to 4.5 inches per minute. And we're just gonna feed it over to the other end and see where our stop point is. So. All right, looks like we're right there. 5 5/8 is what it should have been, and that's about where we are, so perfect. Now we'll go in another 200. I'll just hand feed this in so it doesn't throw oil everywhere like it did last time. And here we go back. right, and go in the last 100 or 95 plus a few. So we're 495, we'll go 498, which will get us just over our keyway, minimum keyway depth, but within our tolerance. And we'll head back. Alright, now I'm gonna take it up. We're gonna go 60 thou on the bottom side. Just get myself right there. And we'll head back. Actually, I'm going to slow it down one notch on the feed. Looks like that's cutting really nice. So I decided to just let this kind of run this video so you can see milling this keyway, how long it really takes. And it doesn't take long. Really, when you get into it, and the nice thing is the chips just fall out of the way with the horizontal cut. Absolutely love using a horizontal mill for keyways. I mean, it's just, you can't beat it. You don't have to worry about tool deflection with chip buildup. I mean, obviously they build up a little, but they fall out, which is great. And we're getting close. 400, 300, 200, 100, and there we are. Now I'll open it up the other direction. Here we go. Now we should have good chip clearance on the bottom there, so nothing should bind up on us. within a ½ inch now, less than. There we are. And I'm just going to go ahead and kind of take the cutter off of the spot, just raise it up to center again, and then we'll stop it and measure. Just kind of get the chips out of the way here. And we'll measure the width just with the caliper, kind of see where we're at. And by the caliper, we're just about there. Let me grab a gauge block and see, maybe 60 was all we needed to do either side. All right, so here's my 750 and my 124 gauge block. And not quite. Let me grab the 122 and 123 and verify we're right. All right, here's the 750 and the 123, which would be 873. Nope. Well, let's try the 122. Got a chip on there. Nope. That's why you never trust your caliper. All right. I'm gonna grab a couple more gauge blocks and figure out exactly where we are. I'm gonna guess we're actually about 870, but I'll verify that and then we'll make the final cut. Okay, so we were 871 by the gauge blocks, which I'm not surprised by. So I got basically 1.5 thou either side to take off, so we'll just take that in a quick pass here. In fact, I'm going to speed up to 500 RPM and we'll clean that right up. All right, now this last pass, I'm almost at the end here, but I slowed my feed rate down to 3 1/4, and that seemed to make a big difference. We should be there. All right, let's get the chips out of there. Get the oil out of there and just check. Boy, that's beautiful. That's 874. Let me grab the 125 to hit the 875 and see how we fit. If it goes in, I mean, we're okay on tolerance, but you like to be just a thou under. And the 875 will not start. Absolutely perfect. Couldn't ask for a better fit. Well, cool. I couldn't be happier with that. And look at those beautiful chips. Well, that came out absolutely beautiful. All I got left is to deburr them, and I just use a deburring tool, one of them hand ones with the little offset hook blade. Works great. Just catch the edge and right around. Came out beautiful. Absolutely love using the horizontal mill for Keyways. It's the best way to do it. Chips fall out, like I said. With the oil coolant on this thing, it works great. Just no complaints whatsoever. This machine holds good tolerances. I love it. Way more rigid than the Bridgeport, but a lot less overkill than you're doing on the horizontal boring mill. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned, there's more cool stuff coming. Check out my website, toppermachine.com. We got the web store there with some good products. And please like, subscribe, and share. And until next time, get out in your shop and get it done right the first time. Oh, big oily mess here. Gotta love it. The only thing that sucks about this machine is the oily mess. Oh, come on, you heavy beast. Cool. 1 down, 7 to go.